which again was part of the Inner Harbour. The Inner Harbour redevelopment. Around 18. We're not very good with dates. 1894, there you go. Better with dates than I thought I was. So, obviously as part of that we saw a lot of, like I said before, land reclamation occurring. There was the blasting of the sandbar that existed across the river to allow larger ships to come in. And today, I mean, it's really used as sort of a fishing point, views of the harbour, that sort of thing. But it's that whole Inner Harbour development was also nominated for a National Engineering Marker Award. So basically there's the sites that, I mean, for various values in the same way that we sort of value different heritage places for different things, but usually it's in the sense of understanding technical achievement and the ways in which they've gone about building these sorts of large-scale projects around Australia. So we might move up a little bit further just to get a bit of a look at the JSTOR shed there. Architecturally to do with the port function than necessarily. So it's not in the same sense as the Crown House and the other buildings that you've seen in the down the beach, that limestone look. This one was moved here 1950s, I'm pretty sure, from Victoria Quay. So it's really related a lot more with the port functions on that side. It is used today as artist studios, and it's also the subject of, I think you guys are assessing the Sunset Events proposal as part of your assignment. Right? Yep. Yeah, so so I guess when we're thinking about things like adaptive reuse, it's really important to understand the values of a place before we go trying to assess what we can put in it. So, like I said, the J shed is really more relevant to the port function. It doesn't necessarily have a strong heritage value of itself, but it is sited within an incredibly significant heritage landscape. And so you have more low impact uses like artist studios where you might have one or two people in there. Yes, they might be doing works that might be a little bit disruptive, but if we're not too concerned about the fabric, it necessarily is not a bad thing. But when you're thinking about bringing, I think the proposal was for 300 or something people into the site, then we have to start thinking about how we're going to provide all the sorts of amenities that you need for those sorts of large-scale events. So things like access to the site, thinking of things like providing toilets, providing security, especially for night events. It's not a well-lit area around here. You'd have to be starting to put in things like floodlights and that sort of thing, signage, safe access and egress, and all those things will start to have an impact on the place. So those are the sorts of things that you guys should be thinking about when you're sort of reading through that proposal and whether or not it's a good adaptive reuse for the site. So we might head up the stairs up there.
对啊，告诉你这些都要写，好没想。所以嘛，我就想说，他们一个人要讲5分钟是怎么来的？你想，一个人要喊5分钟话，这个字。
We'll talk about sort of sight lines and things a little bit later when we get around the corner a bit more, but this is probably the last point from which we can actually see that view out to the ocean, which in itself is an incredibly important sightline vista for Fremantle. So not only that connection with the ocean, but that connection out to Rottnest. You guys got a perfect day today to see those sorts of long distance views that we get between Rottnest and the mainland. And yeah, I guess understanding that importance of a sense of identity to the place. So understanding that you're uniquely Fremantle here. I mean, I drove in via Canning Highway, and as soon as you sort of get to the Fremantle area, you see that crane and the port in the background, and you know where you are, basically. In terms of this area here, so the headland was occupied for a significant period of time by defence, and what we're standing in here is part of the Fort Arthur Head. So as well as these sorts of small-scale buildings, there were gun batteries down a bit lower on the headland, and this was one of the earliest gun emplacements that we had in WA. There's one down in Albany that was a little bit earlier than that, but in terms of the metropolitan area defence posts, this was one of the earlier ones, and it formed part of what we referred to as the Fremantle Fortress. So it was a series of gun emplacements that were designed to overlook and protect this key shipping area through gauge roads here. And so we had gun emplacements at here at Fort Arthur Head. I think there was another one North Fremantle. Rottnest Island, you can still see them there today. There are ones on Garden Island as well. One up in Mosman Park, Buckland Hill. There's a series of tunnels and gun emplacements up there that you can actually, if you guys are interested, you can actually go for tours through the tunnels and see all those, all the interpretation that they've got there for those. And also down at Rockingham, so Point Perrin, there was one down there as well. And they're all in varying states of condition now. The Rockingham one's not great. But they all played a key role in that defence of Fremantle during the World War periods. This one was established around 1906, so it obviously played a role in sort of the First World War and the Second World War, whereas others were, they were developed more for the Second World War, particularly ones like Buckland Hill. So they would work as examination batteries, so they could see the ships coming in, see how they were signalling, making sure they were friendly before they'd let them into the harbour. And a lot of them were also outfitted with anti-aircraft guns as it got later in the period, particularly in World War II when there was more of a threat from things like the bombing of Darwin and Broome and the fall of Singapore and that sort of thing. So again, it's an important part of the history of the headland, and the defence use, as well as things like the whaling use and the boat building, all those sorts of uses have an incredibly high archaeological significance. So when you're considering uses of the place and potential redevelopment of the place, it's also really important to understand the value of what we could uncover in terms of educational use, in terms of interpreting the site, things that you can actually use to tell the story of the place. So archaeology is an incredibly important layer of that history as well. Yeah, so we might move around that way a little bit more. If you guys have any questions so far, feel free to throw them at me. I'll try and... So you guys are the social and scientific?
Yep.
You may need to fact check me on your register entries, but my understanding is that this is a much more modern addition to the site, but it was developed in, I believe, the footprint of one of the original cottages that we had here. So I suppose you could argue either way whether or not you think it's adds anything to the site. I think it definitely tries to be in keeping with the style of the domestic scale of the cottages that you get here. But, and obviously it's an important public amenity when you've got people coming up here as well. But this is the kind of thing that you need to consider when you're looking at proposals like the J Shed Sunset Events. 2 toilets not going to be enough for 300 people. So how are you going to provide those sorts of services to people? Are you going to be trucking in portable toilets every time you want to throw an event? That sort of thing. So and all
How
those
old
things.
is that one over there? Because you know the one that says the lab, or is that just kind of like an older, like did they just kind of redo one of the?
So all
older
those
ones?
little buildings there
Yeah.
are part of that sort of Port Arthur Head development. So
It kind of goes with that, doesn't it? The
yeah,
toilets and that kind of.
they would have been
area.
in that similar period.
Yeah.
So from sort of 1906, the port was developed up until. I can't actually tell you exactly when the port stopped being in use, but I imagine it was probably not long after the Second World War because Buckman Hill was still used for army purposes up until the 70s, 80s, but it wasn't an active defence site. So a little bit further. So all of these domestic scale cottages are being used now, again, in that sort of TARDIS capacity. And this one here, my understanding is it's the Aboriginal Cultural Centre. And I think, I'm sure we're all aware that Fremantle is also an incredibly significant place to the local Wadjuk people. And really cultural landscapes is about understanding those interrelating values of a site, the fact that a place can have multiple values and multiple meanings to different people, and that they're not necessarily conflicting, but they're, they all add something to the understanding of the place and the values that exist there. And obviously there are a number of registered Aboriginal sites around the area as well, the Swan River, and I believe there's a couple of other Aboriginal sites here too, Manjari and Arthur Head, where camping and meeting places, those sorts of things. And we have links to, just look up the history of Fremantle. There's all those sorts of stories and the importance of the place, to the Swan River, to the creation stories and those sorts of things.
Just looking at you're doing the cultural landscape, and I get the questions for me. Trying to think of something, a spiritual perspective.
我操，我怕被放。
你有兴趣吧？
他们还有个单独的要做的，Ingrid 会来指导你的。谁？Ingrid，是我们老师会来指导你的。对，他要是不在了，你怎么办呢？你就跟他这么熟。Where is Sissy? Where she going?